Hey everybody, Jeff Kelly, Chief Instructor at Xilin Martial Arts Center in Corvallis, Oregon. Today I want to start a series on Chen Taijiquan regarding some of the names of the postures. As you probably know, some of them are very, very descriptive. Movements like 3 steps forward or watch the fist under the elbow. But some of the movements have kind of unusual names and names that we may not quite understand in today's modern world. So I want to go over a couple of those. Today I'm going to start with the first movement. The Buddha's warrior attendant pounds the mortar, Jingan Dao Dui. So first of all, let's examine what exactly we're talking about here. What is the imagery? Of course, we know the Buddhism came to China in about 500 AD and started with first the White Horse Temple and then onward from there. So the Buddha's warrior attendants were figures, sometimes historical people, sometimes demigods or deities, that were converted to Buddhism by the Buddha and volunteered to be his guardians. So you'll often see them in temples, sometimes behind the statue of the Buddha, sometimes facing, and also very similar at the 4 points of the temple. You'll have the 4 heavenly kings that are protecting him. So Buddha's warrior attendant is that sort of symbol there. Pounds the mortar is very descriptive, with a mortar and pestle, crushing things, particularly medicine, and so pounding the mortar, this kind of action here. So the Buddha's warrior attendant pounds the mortar. Now that's a mouthful. This name is supposed to be kind of descriptive. Obviously, it's a complicated movement, so we can't describe every inch of it, every subtle movement. So we have a name that kind of gives you the flavor. And for those, I'll just remind you of the movement from here. Okay, so now we've talked about kind of the what's going on with the name. Let's look at the historical part of it. So, as we know, Chen Wanting, the founder, started off with external movements or exterior movements, hard movements, similar to Shaolin. We know going back 9 generations, the founder of Chen Village, Chen Bu, was known as a very good martial artist, and they were doing, external martial arts, much like, in fact, they were called Changchuan a lot of times. The other thing to remember is that the Chen Village, Chenjiagou, is not that far from the Shaolin Temple. As the crow flies, maybe 60 kilometers or something. So Shaolin martial arts had a huge influence in Hunan province at that time. So even in Chen Village, obviously they're going to be using exterior movements. So what Chen Wanting did that was so brilliant was now incorporating the ideas from Taoism, the philosophy, the concept of Qigong, of relaxation, Chinese medicine, Taoist philosophy, and he put that into his art. Now, there's 2 things we have to look at. First of all, where did he get the movements? He didn't make them up. There was a book by Taijiquan, who was a military general, about 50 years before he'd written the Canon of Boxing, which was kind of a survey of the martial arts in the area at this time. Well, we know Chen Wanting borrowed from this because we look at the names of of laojia, the first form, and 29 of the movements, the 31 movements in Taijiquan's book, are in Chen Taijiquan. So we know where he got the physical movements. What he did, though, was add in these other qualities. But what was confusing to me was why did Chen Wanting, when he's creating a Taoist martial art, why did he use a Buddhist terminology and Buddhist iconography? Why did he refer to that? Well, obviously, because the movement existed before him, and it was based, no doubt, in Shaolin. And we have further proof of that. because when I was in China, I was very fortunate to become a 31st generation lay disciple of the Shaolin Temple under the late Master Su Shi. And so I studied Shaolin with some of the monks, and what was surprising to me is that in Shaolin, there is a movement called the Buddha's Warrior 10 Pounds of Mortar. Now, we saw how we do it in Chen Taiji. In Shaolin, the movement's done like this. Okay. So you can see the same kind of concept of pounding in either of the movements. So that's why the name didn't get changed, because he was taking a movement that already existed, people may or may not have been familiar with, but then he brought in the qualities from Taoism, Taoist thought, and created the art of Chen Taijiquan. So I hope this helps explain the movement a little bit, where it came from, what the meaning is. Hopefully at one time in the future, or sometime in the future, we'll explore some of the applications of that movement. Stay tuned for, I'm going to do a couple more of these videos explaining some of the other more flowery or unknown names. We'll talk to you soon. This is Jeff Kelly, Chief Instructor with Xilin Martial Arts in Corvallis, Oregon. We'll talk to you later.